Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's time to complete the trilogy on the flank-related drama of the last couple of days. Ben and ZooMaa do get into it last night on a flank episode where Ben walks back a couple of the things that maybe he went a bit too far on over the last couple of days. ZooMaa though and Ben do seem much more aligned now on where they want the future of the show to be, and even Parasite weighed in with loads of new ideas in terms of how they can step up the quality and improve the number of shows they produce. Feels like the flank's going in a good direction. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. The Cyber charity match was yesterday, and I do wonder about getting, to get ZooMaa involved, we really call it this, if that could happen next year or sometime down the line on the YouTube All-Stars team under Mr. Mark Goldbridge, the best manager in England right now. Southgate out, Goldbridge in as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, quickly on Exceed, a player that was very notable in challenges last year, was actually dominating really the early part of last season. I think it was the LAG Academy that Exceed was on that was doing very well at the start of last season, but that didn't necessarily last too long, and as he says, he's going to be back in challenges. No massive surprise here, but it is a shame just to see how things are going. Now, of course, we don't yet know what the teams are going to look like for Gorillas, for Vegas, and for what I was going to call London, but now, of course, the Carolina Royal Ravens, they will spend some time to confirm what those rosters are going to be. We're going to be waiting a little while. I do wonder about players such as Havoc, because we are going to discuss content here in the coming minutes, and Havoc has been really killing it with the content game for a long time, but especially over the last couple of months, playing ranked, showing that he's got a great personality despite not being part of a big organization, has done really well for himself on the content game, which is fantastic to see from Havoc. He's been playing a lot with Shotzzy as well. I know there's been quite a lot of talk with Havoc, like, could he become the substitute for OpTic or something? Because, he is in that position where he's unlikely to get an easy, like, at least a good starting position in the league again next season. He might get an offer from a Legion or, a London or a Gorillas, possibly. But if that doesn't happen, which it might, but if it doesn't happen, and even if it does happen, would he prefer to be a substitute on a team like OpTic? Possibly. Seems to get on well with Shotzzy. And, Havoc, I'm sure, is thinking about, well, he can't compete forever. Got to look at his retirement, and he's done a much better job than the vast majority of players have at actually setting himself up for his post-Call of Duty career. And OpTic will need a sub at some point. They don't yet have one. They could sign Karma as their sub. They could have Scump as their sub, after I think he kind of was last year. For at least some time he was, because there were some events where Illy wasn't there and Scump was. And I'm pretty sure the teams need to have, like, a player on their 5-man team, including, they need to have a sub basically at the event somewhere. So either it was JP, which, obviously is a bit risky if you actually get a player that's unwell, or it was Scump. So they will need one. Other teams will need one. They'll probably take time to figure it out. Usually the teams wait until, like, pretty much December to figure out who their sub is going to be. They wait maybe for some of the early Challengers Cups just to find out who's the best players, stuff like this, and also it means they have to pay less. So I guess that could make sense for the different parties. Also, Tommy, who is formerly of 100 Thieves, is looking for an organisation to represent for the World Series of Warzone Finals next weekend, so pretty cool stuff. Hopefully Tommy can do well in that one. And just before we get into the flank stuff, I did want to say that we have our first mention here by Hex of what we saw a few days ago, when obviously, yeah, I didn't even notice that you guys pointed out in the comments that Zini got held, like, left hanging there, right? I didn't even notice it originally for some reason because I was focusing on Scump in the foreground. But yeah, Zini tried to get like basically like a high five or low five, whatever, from Shotzzy, and he got completely left hanging. But Hex does do his first comment on this for the time being, and at Dashy and Formal, I haven't heard from you guys on this. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on the topic. Hall of Fame Sniper Clutch, just got to remind them, says Dashy, and then Formal even replies and says like, yeah, pretty nice stuff. So yeah, Hex is already making it very much known that, Scump and Maniac got clutched on, and we're not going to hear the end of it, I'm sure. So let's talk about the flank stuff, right? It's been a talking point for the last few days. I don't know, there's been lots of response and reaction to this. ZooMaa responded to what Ben had to say. Ben then kind of came back a bit. ZooMaa also had some comments on, I think, what I said in the videos. Personally, I stand by what I said. I don't think that it was handled great from either party. Ben talked about stuff on stream, which is, you know, like, Ben's got to know that if he's going to mention stuff on stream in the way that he did, it's going to get clipped, ZooMaa's going to see it, and there's going to be some sort of response. And then ZooMaa brings it up on stream with Ben, and Ben's like, well, I don't really want to discuss it on stream, Tommy, XYZ reason. It's like, look, if you're going to bring it up on stream, and then ZooMaa's like, let's talk about it on stream, and then Ben says no, it's like not great from his side in terms of handling it. I do appreciate though there are some nuances here, because when the show first started, it was kind of ZooMaa and Ben's show. Now it's quite clearly, and it was always ZooMaa's show really, but you know, nowadays it's definitely ZooMaa's show. He runs the show, it's on his channel of course, he's on FaZe, it's a FaZe show, that's how it works. That's not really, you know, where Ben finds himself. So when Ben's talking to ZooMaa on stream about this type of stuff, he's kind of talking to his boss, if you know what I mean. Like, ZooMaa kind of makes the decisions on how much Ben gets paid, whether he is a co-host of the show going forwards, this type of stuff. So it does create a little bit of an interesting dynamic there when those conversations are going down. But I still do think ZooMaa's kind of response was more dismissive than it ought to have been on the subject. But it does seem like they've come to more of an agreement now. I imagine they've discussed this type of stuff on stream, off stream, sorry. And there's two sides of the story, right? Because it's not just the like, there was even articles being written by like pages such as Distractify on like they butt heads on the dwindling popularity of future. I'm not necessarily sure this is necessarily true about dwindling popularity, but and I know that people want it to go back to what they consider to be the glory days. Like, as I've said before, my favorite episodes are in Cold War, but it's not necessarily how it always goes. You can't just go back to the old format and it's going to work better. Things have to evolve, things have to progress, and that's what Ben especially wants to be pushing for, but he doesn't feel like it's happening as quickly as he would have liked to have seen. And you've also got the dichotomy in a way between the content side, what they're actually producing on the show, and then the business side. What are they doing on the other side? What are they paying the co-host, for example? Do they need less co-hosts? Do they need more co-hosts? That'd be a little bit strange. What do they do in terms of merchandise and other ways to monetize? Like, that's the type of stuff that Ben didn't really want to talk about on stream, and I can understand it, but I think it's probably an equally big part of his maybe frustrations as the direction of the content has been. But he's having to talk about the content stuff, and it does feel like they're going in a more positive direction, at least as of the discussion that was going down last night. Is it going to go back to what we had during the Cold War days, such as this screenshot? Probably not, but they've both got other ideas in terms of how they want to take things forward. So last night on the Flank episode, they did run, and I do wonder, like, if there wasn't the beef of the last few days, would they have run the show last night? Maybe not. I mean, I think, to be honest, watching the show, I was like, damn, there was loads of stuff to talk about here. And I'm not saying that it's easy to find things to talk about at this time of the season, because it's not, especially for like a 2-hour podcast show, but I think it's definitely possible. So anyway, this is what they had to say. ZooMaa kind of, well, talking to Ben, like, look, do you think that I don't listen to what you say? Ben saying, look, no, you do listen. We are more aligned now, probably based on discussions they've had behind the scenes, but also then Parasite wedding and giving his ideas that Aches doesn't seem so keen on, but nonetheless, it would be cool to see.
Ben, do I refuse to listen to listen to you when you bring stuff to the table to me? And answer honestly. Do I refuse?
Like, you talking about like business stuff? Or you talking about show stuff?
Everything, yeah, business, show stuff. Look, he said, why do you refuse to listen to anything your co-host has to say? Do I refuse to listen?
You're pretty open-minded when it comes to like the business idea stuff. I think like our thing now, and our thing that Tom and I are aligned on, is starting to like push to get things to move a little bit quicker and not be content of things just going in the flow of how they go. I think Tom and I want to see a little bit more push, so we're going to collectively make sure that happens.
Yeah, nah. Grandma's acting up, man. You know what I'm saying? What do you mean? Refuse. I feel like I'm pretty open-minded when we talk on the phone and stuff. I mean, they wouldn't know that. I mean, unless they're talking about the argument we had. But I mean,
glaze. But if I talk to Tom about anything, he will listen. Like, he will always reply.
Yo, this grandma. Yo, what the is this grandma's problem, bro? Yo,
that guy's just a hater. He's a hater.
Yo, what the?
I was a hater.
No way, bro. Somebody get their grandma, bro. Somebody come get their grandma.
Sure. Listen, you were muted for this, Tom, because you were talking in chat, but I was telling Ben how like we can come up with like actual video ideas where we do stuff like this in person. We can come up with multiple ideas, multiple videos, multiple pieces of content that we can do, and we plan it out. We obviously get props if we need to. We go to Atlanta or Los Angeles and use the FaZe's resources, obviously, and we film for a weekend. I feel like that's not hard to do. That's not out of the question.
Did you say every weekend?
No, we film for a weekend where we plan stuff. Like we plan stuff so that way we go and record.
Yeah, I mean,
we go and record multiple videos in a weekend and then upload them, like, you know, drip feed them.
I mean, listen, drop your ideas down in the comments down below. I mean, obviously we always want to hear out some good ideas and stuff. And it would be cool to do like some IRL content and shit too. That would be pretty cool. So, you know, we can figure all that stuff out, man. If you guys got any ideas, you know, drop them in the comments, like down below. Also, guys,
you know, I'm very curious, and I think we were trying to get Dan on the show to address what Bruce said about his tenure on OpTic and the things that Dan has to work on as a player in a team environment. If he could work on that, we've seen his mechanical skill and his communication is really good, but he's got all the tendencies to be like a franchise player, but he's got to, like, I think that teammate stuff, and I'm curious his perspective on what Bruce said, you know, could kind of prevent that from happening long term.
We should try and get Dan on the show. I think it'd be a good episode. We could talk about his history with OpTic and how he's feeling with the new team. Maybe we'll lock that in sometime this week. Try and get some guys on. But
so it's nice to see that ZooMaa and Ben seem to agree on the direction they want to take. I think Ben's key thing was, and he made the point again, that yeah, ZooMaa listens to what he has to say, but sometimes the action isn't taken as Ben would like to have seen. I think that's what was causing his frustration. You know, as Ben was talking about, like, he's told ZooMaa things for 8 months and nothing's changed, and it's not exactly like it's easy for that to happen. And as I said the other day, in some ways, Ben needs the show to grow and to succeed more than ZooMaa does, because ZooMaa's got his stream, Parasite's, you know, got his stream. Aches has got a full-time job at X Defiance. Ben, you know, kind of needs the flank to take a good direction, even arguably more than ZooMaa does. So I think that's why he's been pushing hard to try and, you know, see the show make some progress on the commercial side, but also in terms of what content they're producing. And ZooMaa certainly is open and listening to the feedback. I think Ben's probably just like, well, you know, can we just get things going, even if that's not necessarily ZooMaa's fault at all. Ben just, you know, he doesn't have the control of the resources, let's say, maybe that ZooMaa does. So good to see that it feels like they're going in a good direction here in terms of, like, it's not like the relationship there is shattered and it's going to be, you know, because we don't want to see Ben and ZooMaa, like, just all of a sudden not be friends anymore and go their separate ways. I don't think anyone wants to see that happen over a situation like this. Parasite, though, with some interesting ideas. How about they use some of the FaZe facilities, fly there for the weekends, record a load of content, and I'm sure Ben has some ideas that maybe he hasn't said publicly on what he would like the show to look like. Is it going to be like a first take type show where, you know, you do a round table, you get thoughts on a topic, it's a, you know, hot take, generate some discussion? That'd be very interesting. I don't know if you guys think that'd be good or bad, but I'm sure there's some ideas on how they could execute it. The other thing that I will say that they mentioned at the end there actually with Ghosty is that there's quite a lot of talk, and I think this is one of the reasons why Ben has felt kind of sat on his frustrations for months and now brought it up, is that I think quite often every off-season the flank will say, and it's not easy to accomplish this at all, but sometimes they'll say, all right, we'll bring on, you know, let's do an interview, let's bring on someone from a team or a certain player and do a show with them. And it does happen. It's not like this has never happened. They have executed these shows, but sometimes they've said, all right, they're going to do a show on this, and then it doesn't happen. And I'm not saying that it's easy to accomplish at all, because getting people to commit to dates and stuff is, especially COD pros or anything, is an absolute nightmare at times. But again, they were like, oh, we'll get, you know, Ghosty on and we'll do a show with him. And I'm sure Ben's like, all right, say we're going to do a show with him, like, let's actually make it happen now. So hopefully it does happen, and we can see more of this in the future. But I think the key thing really that Ben was trying to get across is, like, let's just get back to trying to execute a show on a weekly basis if we can. And yeah, just the fact that it was a show last night makes me think that hopefully the show's gonna, you know, move in a positive direction. The co-hosts are more aligned on where they want to see it going forward. Now, I wouldn't expect to see drastic changes or anything like that, but you know, I think it's a good step at the very least, because the flank is just such an awesome show for the COD scene. Obviously, massive respect and appreciation for what ZooMaa and all of these guys have accomplished with putting this on and making this happen for the community over the last several years. But massive for the growth of the scene as well, especially during the Cold War season, the Vanguard season, when, you know, we'd never had anything like the flank before. It's been just massive for the competitive Call of Duty scene in general, and, you know, as a fan of the competitive Call of Duty scene, I want to see it succeed as best as it possibly can. So very much intrigued to your perspective on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.